This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 528, recorded on March 24th, 2022. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here, and spring is on its way. Gavin, remind me again, where are you located? What part of the world do you live in?
Toronto. I'm just on the outskirts of Toronto.
Okay, so basically East Coast, right? Right, as Toronto sits over the East Coast of the U.S., is that right?
No, well, it's like above
Close to the
Buffalo,
Okay.
kind of like around there. Like,
Yeah, in Omaha, that's all east, so we consider
okay.
that the East Coast.
I figured that anything you were just like, oh, over on that side.
Yeah, we
We're
don't,
Eastern Standard Time.
anything on that side of the Mississippi is East Coast. It's like,
Okay.
yeah, those East Coasters. Are you guys getting any spring weather? Are you excited about it coming?
It's really weird. Like the weather is going up. It's been up like 10, 15. We hit 18 degrees Celsius at one point.
Right.
All the snow is melted at this point. We had crazy windstorms last night. And lots of rain falling. And then, with all that going on, next week they say we might get a little more snow coming in again. They're watching out for that.
Yeah, don't get suckered into that whole second spring thing.
Yes,
it's not real.
Yeah,
it's
one of the golf courses actually opened up down the road. So some people are getting out already to golf.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, global warming is helping with that because we get the warmer days are just a little bit warmer, which is kind of nice. I mean, it's in 70s here. So, well, hopefully if you're listening to this now, you're in some great weather. And certainly for our friends down in Texas, they just got slammed the last couple nights. And hopefully everyone is safe. But it is that time of the year. Spring here, at least in the Midwest, is pretty crazy. But of course, we'll post a show with some world-class show notes, and I'll have a few from tonight out at the Average Guy.tv. Don't forget you can watch us again, sort of live, the YouTube premiere every Saturday noon Central, and you can jump in and just watch it again. A bunch of us kind of show up, and you can jump in the chat room, and it's a good way to chat. And you don't even have to listen, and you can, or maybe you got distracted the first time you listened to it, or you could just come out and join us. Noon Central, the AverageGuy.tv/YouTube. You've heard him already, but Gavin Campbell is with us tonight of HomeTech.fm fame. And Gavin, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Great to be back. We always seem to have a big topic every time I come back. So I'm looking forward to getting into what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Some home networking is on tap. Let's figure out what's going on at HomeTech.fm, though. What kind of things, how's that going? And what have you guys been covering over there?
Oh, it's been great. HomeTech FM, for those not familiar, we cover a lot of home automation stuff. So anything to deal with, and we cover various spaces. So we're covering the DIY space. That's where I come in. We cover the pro space. TJ and Seth help with that. We cover news. We have some home projects we feature. We're even talking about projects that we're working on. Like right now, TJ's working on a new van he got. Seth's trying to get brave enough to automate his kitchen range, right? Like we're trying to wait for a time when the wife's not home so he can pull it apart, right?
He's gonna hold on. He's gonna DIY. I mean, he's gonna turn the range into a smart range, or what's he? Because this sounds kind of interesting. Like, what's he doing?
So this is what we're talking about. I actually bought a Fibaro sensor. I had it somewhere around here, but I bought a Fibaro sensor that I was going to try and do the same thing with my range, but we wanted to automate it and turn the range into like a Z-Wave control. So automate the lights so we can control the lights on it and we can control the fan on it, right? So there's it's a little bit more complicated because of how the buttons work on it and stuff like that. So we've been kind of talking about it. It's a brave project. So we're taking our time with this one, but little things like that we cover on the show. I talked about one of my projects. I added some smarts to my dryer. So I can get notifications when it's on and off.
Nice.
And how I did it was a little bit like an aha moment. I'll let the listeners go listen to the show because it's a little different there, right?
Yeah.
And then something coming up, what we've been working on. I don't know if Seth will like me saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. But we've been trying to line up some interviews or some interesting people that we want to talk to that we're going to try and get on the show. And, I'm not going to mention any names yet, but, that should be coming up in the future.
Cool. Speaking of that, next week here on Home Gadget Geeks, Cody Sodine is joining us. He's the inventor and creator of this. It pulls moisture out of the air and creates 10 liters a day of drinking water, clean drinking water. And so they're on a Kickstarter program, and they reached out to me and said, hey, can we come talk about it? And sure. So if you want to join us live next week, Cody will be with us as well. Well, Gavin, that sounds really cool. Like that would be it. Listen, if you're new to Home Gadget Geeks, or even if you're not, and you haven't been or subscribed to HomeTech.fm, you should, because it's very similar. I think you guys are a little more technical. You get a little more into the weeds, I think, if I remember.
Yeah, and we focus a little more on automation stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you haven't subscribed to that, you should head out to HomeTech.fm and get it subscribed. Listen to it, add it to it. I know all of our, for some of us, all of our repetition, the things we do on a regular basis have changed, in the last couple of years. I am desperately trying to get my podcast listening back. It's just not, 2 weeks ago, I was like, I'm going into the office 3 days a week, and then gas prices went up, and I was like, maybe 2 days. And then this week I was like, maybe I'll just stay home. So, I've been actually taking trips during the day. Like, I think I need to go to the grocery store just to get out of the house, kind of deal. We've got one just down the road. So I pop in the podcast then, but HomeTech.fm. Gavin, we had you on the last time. We talked a lot about Unraid, and I think you guys talk about Unraid as well on HomeTech.fm. So if you like that topic, you might want to head over and listen to that. After the show, you're like, I could talk some more about some things. And so I pinged you, and you've recently kind of redone your whole internal home networking, right? What causes someone to just go, the old stuff is out, I'm bringing something new in?
In my case, it was just, I had an issue with the old stuff. And I spent a lot of time trying to solve it, working with support and working with people. And I just could not figure it out. And I just got fed up, and I said, you know what? I'm done. I told support, I said, thank you very much for the help. It's nothing on you guys. We just can't figure this out. I'm done, and I'm out.
What'd you have? What'd you pull out?
I had a Euro setup, right? And I had that Euro setup for many years, and it worked great, right? It's just I ran into a situation. They released an update in August of last year, and all of a sudden my devices started dropping off the network. So mainly my Harmony hubs were dropping off the network, and that was frustrating because you could be watching TV and you go adjust the volume and it just stops working. And then like cell phones and wireless devices. So that's where it started.
So solidly caused by the update, right? I mean, did they admit to that, or did at the end of the,
That's the only thing I could tie it to, because it was working beautifully, and then they released this big update with some new features on how the network mesh and how it decides what bands it uses and stuff like that. And that is what I tied it to at that time. I asked them to roll it back, even just to troubleshoot it. I said, listen, let's troubleshoot. Let's just roll it back to troubleshoot it. And they refused to do that. So I could never really justify that. So we went through everything to try and solve this.
Yeah. Well, you gave it a try. I mean, that's good on you for at least working through it with them. Give us a little kind of rundown from a equipment standpoint. What else do you have on your network? We know you have an Unraid box, but what other kinds of things are you using on your network?
My network, I have a lot of devices other than the usual cell phones, laptops. I'll have computers. I have all my TVs. I have a little PC on them, a micro PC. So those are all hardwired in. I have video cameras, all my video cameras. Some are hardwired, some are not, those are on it. And then just the usual IoT devices. So you'd have like your Echo Bee on there, or your Amazon devices are all on there, right? Those are just, it adds up. When you look at your DHCP reservations, it just adds up. Next thing you know, you have 100, 150 devices. You're like, where did these all come from?
I imagine you're still running a switch of some kind though, too, right? We've all got, because we all have a bunch of hardwired stuff too. And not everything's wireless. So what are you running for a switch?
Now I have a Unify switch
Okay.
down there. I got a 24 port. When we moved into this house, one of the first things I did was have a guy come in and run wire as much to every room. I ran Cat 6. Luckily, I had a stack in the middle of my house, and they just ran it right up to the attic and down into every room. It made the
Mm.
job easy. So I lucked out there.
I've heard some guys say they run conduit, like PVC, plastic PVC, to the various places. So to kind of future proof the wiring process, because
Yeah.
at some point, I mean, we were running Cat 5. It wasn't that long ago. We were wiring things with Cat 5. And then, of course, if you had to pull, if you wanted to put in a Cat 6 or Cat 7 at this point, you'd have to pull all that. And so have you in your setup, if you had to rewire, would that be an ordeal?
Not really. It's not really difficult for me because in the middle of my house, I have my water heater, and
Mm,
from it's a gas, so there's a vent that goes straight up
okay.
through the house. So they just use that. I'm gonna be replacing it, but I'll still have that. So if I had to rerun everything, I would just go through the same spot and it made things easy. If someone else was doing it, running PVC from your basement to your attic would make life easier because once you're in the attic, then you could drop down in all the rooms up there. And if your
Yeah.
basement's unfinished, then you can go up through the basement if
Right.
you had a basement, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it always gets me thinking. And I just have two levels: basement, first floor. We don't have a second floor.
Okay.
So it's pretty easy for me. And I've run cable up to the attic I put antennas in the attic. I'm that guy. So I didn't want them on the outside. In Nebraska, you don't want anything on the outside of your house because it's gonna get blown away at some point. You just know, right?
Yeah.
So we put antennas, I put them up in the attic. So I've run cable up there. I don't have any power up there. Maybe Wieger has pushed all his cameras PoE. So and
Yeah.
I'm sure you have as well, right? All your cameras are PoE
No,
or
I haven't gone PoE
okay.
yet. My cameras are all I have power at the location where everything is, so I didn't
Mm,
see a need for PoE really.
sure, sure. Well, it's a consideration. Now, when your router started to fail, was your hardwired stuff okay? I mean, did that work? Was it just the Wi-Fi stuff that was the problem?
Yeah, it was just the Wi-Fi, and mainly like we noticed it like with the Harmony hubs. We noticed it with our cell phones. We would notice it. Things would just drop off and on randomly. I spent about 4 months, I think, working on this with support. Going through
Wow.
so many things, and I replaced almost every piece of equipment in my setup. And all they kept blaming was my ISP. They said interference. They went through so many things and we never figured it out.
Yeah, that's always working with your ISP is a dream, you know?
Oh, my ISP was great. They came
Were
out,
they?
they
Okay.
tested the line, they did everything. I even upgraded my service for the same amount of money, right? And I was happy, and they said, yeah, I'm getting great speeds, so it can't be anything
Yeah.
wrong there, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Bob says, sounds like it could have been a DHCP failure when things, start dropping off one thing at a time. Other than that, then all going poof at once. I was thinking it was maybe a Wi-Fi chip in the actual so sometimes they don't use the best gear. Did they replace the gear for you at any point in time or no?
So they offered, but I actually told them there's no point at that.
Okay.
Like I documented this in a Reddit thread, and one of the things I did was I had 5 euros, right? So I even got to the point where I had one online. I was running off just one. And then even that one, I swapped it out with one of the other ones. So I
Okay.
said, I tried to eliminate that. I said, chances of one failing, okay, great. Chances of two or three all failed, unless I got
Yeah.
struck by lightning or something like
Yeah.
that, like so I replaced that and with no luck at all.
Boy, that does sound like software. Right? I mean, you did your due diligence. You worked
Yeah.
through all the troubleshooting. We find, I have found in the consumer work that I've done, people buy these cheap single Wi-Fi routers, right? So they're 69 or $79. They put a whole bunch of things on them. And you do have to realize those chips on there are not very good. I mean, you're not getting a very good router for $69, right?
No.
It's just not. And so, of course, the more devices you add to them, the hotter they get, and none of them are designed for heat at all. They just basically, someone licks those chips and sticks them on the board, right? Good to go.
Yeah.
So, those things burn out. I mean, the cheap ones. Now, I think most who listen to this show have probably upgraded to some serious equipment by now. We've all done that. We've all gone through that. But I see that in the space, and I don't see it as much as I used to, but I used to see it a lot. People contact me like, yeah, my Wi-Fi is not working. I just bought a router like 9 months ago. And, you say, well, how many devices do you have on it? And unlike you, they always say, oh, just a few. And then when you start asking them, well, are your TVs? Oh yeah. Do your phones? Oh yeah. We're connected. What about you have any kind of camp? Oh yeah. My ring does go through that, right? Pretty soon you add it up, and there's like 35 devices running full time on that thing, and it just burns the chips out. The chips just.
I I'm a little excessive, but I add a reservation for every device. I know every device on my network, right? Yeah. So I know exactly what's there, where it is, so that's one of the things I keep real locked down on.
Yeah. Bob says 3 cheap things in one box. What could go wrong? Switch, router, and Wi-Fi. And it's true. I mean, they were just budget gear in there, and it does. This is one of those areas I cheaped out on them for a while. And in the pre-show, you and I were talking. You were saying, one of the things you're trying to do is when you buy equipment, just buy a step up or a step or two up, just so it'll last a little bit longer. And I think sometimes we get pulled into that budget frenzy, like, oh, it's on sale. And they're like, there's a reason, it's on sale. So I think that's probably not a good, I think that's probably a pretty good mantra to take. It's a little challenging right now because there's a few things that are a little more expensive than others, but there are things that aren't ridiculously expensive. You and I were talking about, you got a big Unraid box. Hard drives right now are actually pretty reasonable for whatever reason. I mean, you can find some good deals on those. You found some pretty good deals recently as well, right?
Yeah, so I've decided to in my Unraid box, everything's the Western Digital Red, right? And I remember on the last show we were talking about our oldest drives, and I think mine are still, my oldest drives are still running, are about 7 or 8 years old, right? But I had a Western Digital that was just over a year old fail on me this week. And last week, on Sunday, I shipped it out to Western Digital for an RMA. They got it Monday. They shipped it out Tuesday. I got the replacement on Wednesday. Nice. So it was a really good process with them. Yeah. So I'm going to stick with Western Digital.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good call. I think if you were upgrading anything at the moment, hard drives are a good place to be. They've stabilized, prices stabilized out. They really haven't seen an increase through this inflationary period that we've been in. You can still get some good deals. The new 16 terabyte drives are kind of getting in that sweet spot. And so I think it's a good place to be. Okay. So I'm dying to hear you like, all right, I'm done. I'm going to do something different. What do you start as you're thinking about a new setup? Walk me through your thought process a little bit. What were you thinking about?
At this point, I was thinking of doing a couple of things. I wanted to simplify my setup. So, like if I'm going to rip it all out and replace it all, let's just simplify it. I was running a pfSense box in there, and at the time I was doing more advanced stuff with pfSense at that time, but I decided, what, I don't really need this, right? It's overkill.
And you're stabbing people in the heart right now, Gavin.
I'm sorry, no, it's a very powerful box, but I didn't need what it offered, and I figured if I'm going to put in a new system, let me look for a system that lets me do some of the stuff that pfSense box does as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so some smart. I mean, were you looking for kind of smart routing? Were you looking for some IP address blocking? What were you looking? What were you replacing in that pfSense box that you used the most?
Well, the pfSense box, what I was doing was I was doing some smart routing out, and doing some, forwarding things through specific VPN tunnels and stuff like that. And you know what I said, it's just too complicated. I don't have to do this stuff, so, and one of the troubleshooting steps through this whole process, I actually pulled out the pfSense box to eliminate from the whole mix. right? And then I switched over to having the Eero as my whole gateway router, everything, right? And just to eliminate that. And once I got rid of the PF Sense box at that point, I said, I don't really need to add it back. Right. So, I know the PF Sense hardcores they're upset with me. I'm sorry. I love PF Sense still, but I just didn't need it.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a lot of hate mail.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
it's been Gavin. It's been nice having you on. Thanks for coming out tonight. It's always good. No, it's great having you. Listen, Wieger goes back and forth.
Yeah.
He goes back and forth on it, and I do too. Although I haven't recently. I started setting up a PF Sense box. Oh, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, and I got it to the point where I booted it up and I got the network cards, and then I was like, do I really? Because it's super easy to set up. Like that part is easy. And then I was starting to think through all the stuff I needed to set up on the network, and I was like, I don't know. I just tore it apart. I was like, I don't know. I don't need more complicated things in my life.
That's the key.
Right. I need them to be less complicated. Did it give you a chance to kind of think? So if you're going to pull the PF Sense box and you're going to have to reconfigure a router coming in, did that give you a chance to rethink your network design at all? Were there things that were there other things you could make more efficient or do differently? Any thoughts on that?
I did try and think. I ran some more cables, to hardwire some more stuff. But the setup I kind of had already, I was kind of happy with. So I centralized everything in the basement, where my service comes in. From there, from the basement, I have a switch, and that switch feeds the rest of the house. And then as I have a line going to like my office, I have multiple devices in my office. I would have another mini switch here that I would, offload other things off the Wi-Fi as well through that. So I pretty much liked what I already had. I just ran a few more extra things in the setup.
Do you have a bunch of different named 4-port switches all around the house, like I do, like different brands? Some of them are like 10 years old, and they're hidden inside a cabinet somewhere or whatever. Do you do that too?
Yeah, but before I got rid of them all though. I went with the new solution. I said, you know what, I'm going one brand. I want it to do everything, right? So I don't want to mix match different brands. I wanted one brand, covers everything.
Did you also kind of think through like, okay, what does my Wi-Fi coverage actually need to be? Did you do any testing inside or outside at all to determine that? And what'd you use?
Yeah, so in terms of coverage, some of the things we want coverage is in the backyard. We want around the pool. We want coverage out there. I want coverage in the front yard, in the garage area and stuff. I wanted to have good coverage there. And that coverage I wanted to extend into. Sounds funny, but we hang out in my neighbor's garage a lot, so I kind of wanted to extend it to his garage too, so I could get my signal from there. Like he doesn't get his signal in his garage too well, but I can get mine in his garage. It's a weird thing, right?
No,
so we planned that all out, and there was actually a tool that I used that could you can tell it what devices you were putting where you were putting on your floor plan, and it showed you the coverage. Right. And I used that to plan out what devices I needed and where to put them and how much coverage they would have. And it showed you based on the walls too, how weak or strong outside the walls it was.
What was this tool?
It's part of the Unify tool set. I would have to look it up, but they have their own tool, a designer tool, and you can put your own floor plan in it, and then you just take the devices that you bought with them and you put it in the locations, and it shows you the strength and the coverage and takes into account walls and stuff.
And we didn't explicitly say this, but you ended up going with a Unify system. You kind of mentioned it, but you ended up going Unify. What was that like? What's it going to run me to jump into a solution like that if I was going to go that route?
A lot. I know. You know what? I reached the point where I'm like, you know what? I want to solve this problem, not think about it again. Right. So I'm going to throw some money on it. I pieced together the system by looking online, marketplace. Are people off? There's a lot of people offloading, older equipment. I got a great deal on a Dream Machine, the Unified Dream Machine, and a guy had like 10 of them, and he was giving them away for like next to nothing. And I jumped at it, and I lucked out on that. I saw a few other deals, grabbed those things, and I ended up just piecing the whole system together with everything I wanted. But it did cost me a little bit of money still.
A little chunk of change to do.
Yeah.
Well, you're in Canada too, so it's always a little more expensive, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Aaron's always saying it's like 20% more, something like that in Canada.
Yeah, we always have we gotta pay for the ship from the States and stuff like that
Oh, I
too,
thought
and
it was
all that
paying for
stuff.
healthcare. I thought that's what it was.
And that too, yeah, yeah.
I mean, they don't make 20. They don't actually, have $500 hammers, right? I mean, something needs to pay for healthcare up
Exactly.
there, right? So I'll run through. So what did you end up with? What's the kind of punch list of equipment it took to replace all that?
So I got the Unified Dream Machine, that's the
Okay.
main router and everything like that. And then that goes into a switch, a 24 port switch. It's not a PoE switch, it's just their current I don't know the exact model numbers off the top of my head,
Yeah,
but
no worries.
you'll see it on their website.
Yeah.
From the switch, I have two Flex HDs. One's in my family room, one's in my master bedroom, and then I have a Nano that's like at the front of the garage, and those are my access points. Right.
Mhm.
So I have those access points throughout the house. They're all on different corners of the house, so they cover the edges. And then, in the various rooms, I also have little like 4-port switches in each one that, and it's funny because you see all this stuff in their app. Like they all report to each other. You can manage them. You see what's connected to them.
Nice.
Like it's amazing the information you get from them.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like, and I haven't run a Unify system, but it does sound like you get a lot of clarity out of it as far as what things are doing. That was always with PF Sense. I always felt like I had to get a PhD to figure out some of the I got to write some code to do this. Now, you write code, so that would be pretty easy for you. But I always struggled with that. Is your garage the one that gets to your neighbor's garage?
Yes.
Is that you guys? So the garages are pretty close.
Yeah, they're like right next to each other. So, I get my signal over there, which is, great because sometimes I'll go over there and be working on something and I need to have access to my network from there.
Yeah. How long do you think you were taking down the home Wi-Fi, right? I mean, you're not always the most popular person in the house when those kinds of things happen. I mean, I always have to plan if I'm going to do any major upgrades or anything. I kind of have to do them late at night or wake up early on a Sunday morning. That's a good time to do it. Do you have any problems putting this in? How long did it take you? Talk a little bit about that.
When you plan something like this, I know you have to go through change management and get approvals, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole process to it, So when I planned it, luckily it's just me and the wife, so I don't have to deal with kids, complaining that the Wi-Fi is down or anything. But the wife, the TV is all dependent on it and everything like that too, right? So what I did is I planned it so the first thing I had to get back up and running was the Unraid box and the TV, right? So I know once I get the switch in and I got this in, all that stuff's kicked back in and the main TV's working and she's happy, and now I can work on the rest of it. And that only took me a little bit of time.
Did you have to change SSIDs? Did you have to go to each of the devices, or were you able to put in the same info and password and have it work?
Yeah, I kept all the SSIDs the same and the same password. So when I configured the Unified Dream Machine actually offline first, so that all I had to do was just swap it in for the Eero at that point, right? And the SSIDs were all the same and everything, and the devices just all switched right over.
Bob says, I always plan my network maintenance around, honey, did you see that there's a shoe sale at your favorite place on Saturday? It's a great way to say, hey, here's $100. Go get some lunch somewhere and take your time. Right?
Yeah.
As a way to do it. Have you had it? When did you put it in, Gavin?
I think it was about December or November or December. I put it in.
And have you had any Dream Machine problems? There's a couple reports in the chat room of some folks that the Unified Disappointment Machine, as called by some out there. Have you had any issues, or did you know? God, listen, every piece of equipment has issues, right? But
every piece of equipment has issues. I'm one of the lucky ones. The only issue I had with my whole setup since I put it in was with my printer. My Air printer was dropping off. You'd boot it up you would see it, you could print fine, and then like an hour later, it's gone, right? And it wouldn't discover. And I don't know what it was, but I went through extensive like disable this feature, let's see what happens. Disable this feature. I documented everything so I can try and figure out what exact feature it was. And then one day it all started working. I don't know if I got an update and there was a reboot and it all started working. I don't know what it was. I can't figure out what it was. I went through and started undoing all the things I did, and I can't break it now. So I'm at the point where it's like, you know what? It works. Oh, well, you know, like I don't know how it fixed it.
Just one day you went down there and it was fine.
Yeah, one day I went to print something and it's like, oh, it showed up, right? And the wife, she prints a lot, so she's the first to let me know. So she's my perfect test for that.
Yeah. Don't you hate that? Like you're working and troubleshooting and you reset it and you do it again and set it back up and you give up and you try again a week later and it doesn't work. And then one day, poof, just works.
I think it may have been an update they released or something, you know, because there's updates going out like all the time to these things.
Yeah. An update to the printer or an update to the network?
The update to the network. So the Dream Machines, even the access points, they all get software updates.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you manage those on the Dream Machine?
I almost feel like I want to turn it off, but I have it all automatic. So I almost feel like I want to turn it off because I want to manage it. I haven't got bitten yet by the updates, you know, so maybe if I do get bit one day where they break something, then I'll turn it off. But
then you'll be like, Eero, come back.
No.
Right?
I liked having the control though for that, because on Eero you have no control over the updates. You get it when you get it. You can't reverse it. You can't block it. You know, they're just like, too bad. Here's your update. Take it. Everybody's got it. And that's one of the things I did not like about that.
Can you roll back on Unify?
Yes, I believe if I download, I can roll back manually. I haven't had to or haven't tried to, but I believe I can through the interface.
You feel like it's a pretty easy system to administrate? I mean, now you're a pretty advanced user, but compared to Eero, do you feel like it's harder or easier to administrate?
It's harder than Eero. Just because Eero doesn't have half the functions, half the features, half the settings. They've really simplified. You can't beat Eero in terms of that. The other thing about this is their interface is all over the place on the Unify. They have two interfaces. They have the old interface and the new interface, and when you look up things, problem solving or whatever, you don't know if someone's referring to the old interface or the new interface, or you can't find that setting. You got to jump through them because they didn't put all the settings in both interfaces. It's pretty much a mess like that. So it's a little frustrating, but Eero is still top on that.
Do you think they're going to get better? I mean, I'm sure you're in their forums. I'm sure,
yeah.
At hometech.fm, you're talking about this. Do you think it's going to get better?
No, I don't have any hope because I've been seeing people complain about this for a very long time. So they're moving very slow. Well, like some of the support articles are people from like last year, year before, and they're complaining about the same things we're complaining now in terms of the interface. So as long as like I know where to find the things, I'm getting used to it now. But when it first started, it was like old interface, new interface. Why is this different?
Yeah. Two versions of the same thing.
Yes.
Oh, you mean like Windows 11? No, it can't be that. Can't be like that. Talk a little bit about, okay, so you ditched the pfSense box because of its complexity. Did this just add another level of complexity in the advanced settings that you now are just doing it on the Unify box as opposed to doing it through pfSense? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, this added a little bit more complexity. I have to admit, pfSense has some really powerful options that you can do when it comes to routing and stuff like that I really got deep into. But the more I did stuff like that on the network, the more my network got complicated, the harder it was to troubleshoot problems. So that's why I kind of ditched doing all that, and I kind of simplified my network to a point. But this does allow you to do a lot of powerful stuff if you need to, which is what I like, because one day I may want to do something, but I don't want to be restricted by the hardware I have.
Joe had said it. He rolled back manually on Unify.
Yeah.
You just paste in the URL in the forward you into the manual update field. So
Yeah.
Good. Alex is asking, how hard it was it to adjust AP power for Wi-Fi roaming, Eero, Nest, Wi-Fi, etc. You just plug it in and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because on the Unify, you could actually I turned down the power on my access points, right? And they actually recommend doing that because you don't want them overlapping so much. You kind of want the signal to get weak enough that the device will jump over to the next one, right? But you can also get to the point where the Unify will kick you off to roam to another access point based on, you know, your RSSI number value. I can't remember the setting. It's called a threshold setting. But you know, those are settings that, yes, they're nice to have, but you can also get yourself in trouble if you don't know what you're doing with them. So I kind of don't modify this, but I turn down the power so that's just enough, and I've had no problems with roaming. Like they have an iOS tool, right? And I always tell people about this. And with that tool, I can walk around my house and it will tell me, it vibrates every time it roams to another one. So you can kind of see where my phone's jumping around and when. And then it also uses the camera, what do they call it? Not the infrared, where it can map out your space. LiDAR.
Yeah.
It uses that, and it will let you map out your whole house, and it draws on that the power from your Wi-Fi, and it tells you, like, you could walk into the corner of your house and it's mapping out your house, and will tell you the strength of the signal right in that corner as you walk around your house. It's a really cool tool for figuring out a dead spot, or, you know, a spot you might want to, you know, increase the power on or something like that.
That sounds fun. That sounds like a video game all in itself. Like,
it's kind of cool.
How long did you spend walking around mapping out your house?
I did it for as long as, you know, I walked in a few rooms and then I stubbed my toe and I was so mad I just gave up. Like that's an actual true story. I hit my toe on the table. So I got through, I think, 2 rooms, and I was so cool, but I was looking at the phone and not paying attention. And that just hurt so much. I gave up, and I said, all right, I'm going to do this when it's brighter out. And I just never got around to it again. But it's a really cool tool.
Yeah, it sounds cool. Like now I want to buy Unify just for this tool. Like I'm weird that way. I want to map the house, you know, I want to figure out signal strength and what's you know, when I went on to the T-Mobile 5G service, there's some tools you can do to look up. We talked about this on the show, where's the route or where's the tower it's coming from. They'll even tell you what part of the house. They have a tool that'll say, okay, here's you on the map. It should go on this side of the house, right? Which is kind of cool. And so I mess with that thing, laid it down, set it up, turned it around, put it in the window, which they don't recommend. They're like, don't put your router in the window. Like that's a bad idea. It's a great spot for it because, you know, it's clear to go through, but there's a little heat problem, right, with that. So no window. So I love those kinds of things. I'd have done that, and then next week I'd have done it again. I'd want to see, like, I want to get one of these vacuum cleaners that does that. So, you know, it maps your house, like, because I just want to watch it map the house, right? So, are you going to go back and do it again? Are you gonna maybe put some shoes on this time so you don't stub your toe?
The Unify system actually gives you a lot of tools for troubleshooting your network. So like some of the other tools in the interface, it lets you see all the other networks around you and what they're doing, and they're jumping around in real time. And that actually led me to what I think was the cause of my devices dropping off before, right? So when I started looking at that, I started seeing all the Eero networks in houses around me. Right. And there were about 3 other Eero networks around me, and they were all fighting on channels 1, you know, that band. And I think Eero hard codes it just to channel 1. So they're all fighting around that. And I think that was affecting me. And that was the interference that the support people were probably seeing. Right. But I saw this with Unify. So on my Unify setup, I changed all the channels on that side of the house that was getting affected. And then I adjusted the channels around the house. So I got around it all.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We had some Mike and I bought some Wi-Fi cameras. Forget the name of them now, but I bought 2 of them, set them up. When I was setting up the Ring devices, I was getting really terrible, signal off Ring, and I'm like, it's right there. Like the camera was literally on the other side of the wall. Well, the what's the name of a camera, a company that would make D-Link. I think they were
Yes.
D-Link.
Yes.
The little D-Link cameras. Well, for whatever reason, we were troubleshooting and I unplugged those, and all of a sudden, like the Ring stuff was like, "Oh, hello, I'm here." Like I'm here and I'm great, and this is the best I've ever seen. And I thought, no, certainly these Wi-Fi cameras wouldn't be causing the issue. Plug them back in. The Ring devices just went. And eventually we figured out, like I think you did too, those D-Link cameras were just causing all kinds of noise on the channel. And so I just took them out, which was sad because they were pretty cool. I mean, I liked messing around with them, and I could put them in spots that were convenient for me. But I was going to go with Ring. So do you think? Well, but Eero would not allow you to change those channels, right?
No.
So you would have never been able to even fix it anyways, even if you'd known.
Exactly. Like all they ever kept telling me was they see interference. They see interference.
Yeah.
They didn't tell me exactly what it was, where it was, but I turned off every arrow except the main one and ran with that for a week, and it still was having problems. So that's one of the reasons why I gave up. And I still, even today, I see somebody's car has something broadcasting from it, just based on the name of it, and it's on channel 2, right? So being on channel 2, you interfere with the channels a little bit more. So I try and keep away from those lower channels, and now I don't have the problems.
Yeah. Well, that kind of reminds me, I used, and it was like Wi-Fi Man or something. There's an app that I'd put on my Surface that I could go around and see all the channels. I think I wiped it out when I put a Windows 11 on, but maybe I can find it again. Because that kind of, like lately too, I've been seeing all these Wi-Fi networks pop up in the neighborhood. I'm not saying I used to be the only one, but there didn't used to be as many as there are now, right? And that channel interference can be a big deal, you know?
Yeah, I think Joe is asking. It's called Wi-Fi Man on iOS. That's the app that I was mapping it out.
Okay.
If that's the one
Wi-Fi Man, I think
yeah,
yeah.
it's a Unify app.
Is the Wi-Fi Man, right? You can see it'll show you that and give you a bunch of details on the networks that are around you, right?
The Wi-Fi Man will let you. It will show you your speeds. It will show you your roaming and stuff like that. It will let you map out your space and the signal.
Oh, that's the Unify app. Okay.
Yeah, in the Unify app itself, that's where it will show you the networks, and you can troubleshoot that stuff and see all the networks jumping around pretty well like that. So you want to have both of them. They'll help you troubleshoot any Wi-Fi issues.
I'll have to look up. Maybe I can find that. But I was using that app for a while. You could put, it was really, really nice. Not that one, the different one that you could put, I put on my Surface, and then I could walk around, and in real time, it would show me all the Wi-Fi networks and their signal strength and the channels they were on. And now that you're talking about this, like all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I should, maybe I'm getting some interference here too that would that I could maybe change channels or whatever. Joe says they noticed that the new Unify Network V7 has a radio optimization that you can schedule to scan and adjust channels automatically.
Yeah, so we talk about that actually in the Home Tech Hub. We have a bunch of guys, a lot of pros in there that we talk to, and they're much more advanced on Unify than I am. Like they'll go through things with me, and I'm just lost. But one of the things they say is don't use that. Don't let it auto find it because it causes more problems. Find the channels that you want and work well for you, and just let it be. I chose channel 11. I always tried to avoid channel 11 because I didn't want it affecting my Zigbee. They're kind of overlap in a way, but I moved my Zigbee channels out, and channel 11 has been great on one side of my house. On the other side of the house, I have channel 6, and then I let all those other Eero networks fight on channel 1.
Okay, good way to do it. Works for you, right?
And that's the whole thing. I'm not a pro. I'm average, a little more average. Find what works for you, because some things will work for me, but they don't work for you. But then you find what works for you, and everyone's happy.
Yeah, I did find that app. It's called WinFi.
Yes.
I'm not even sure it works, just to be honest. It's on my Surface, and that's running Windows 11. We'll see if it actually boots up. But that was the one I'd carry around and kind of start looking at. And I have a pretty small house, so I have the Bitdefender box, and it works just fine for me and what we do. everything reaches it. But so I have a fairly easy setup for that. But and then I try to hardwire everything I can. That's just one of those kind of like, it doesn't have to be on Wi-Fi. I don't run it. It's loading. We'll see if this thing can actually, if this will actually work. WinFi, WINFI.
And another one I was playing with was called Insider. So it's like INSSIDER. But these things, they'll give you a whole lot of information. You have to know how to interpret that information to figure out what it is that's causing you problems.
Yeah. This one is just loading. I maybe have to do some. I thought maybe they desupported it at some point. Anyways, so I'm at what point when you were looking at the neighbor's network and you saw this, did you was it like a relief? Like, oh, now I know why. Well, you suspect, right? You don't know if you know for sure, but you suspect maybe interference was what was causing the original problem, right?
Yeah, and when I first put in the Unify, all my Unify was on channel 1 and everything like that. And yeah, I was seeing interference and stuff, and that's what I started using their tools to troubleshoot it. And that's when I saw all this and started moving my channels around and everything. So I suspect when it was all the Eero networks in my area all fighting on that same way, because Eero introduced some, I can't remember what they called it, but they basically introduced extra features in one of their updates that, they auto adjusted the bands they used and, did all this funky network stuff. And I have a feeling they're all just fighting. They all got the update and they're all just fighting in that space to beat each other up. And I was just in the crosshairs,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, if they're all auto adjusting and then, it becomes kind of a race, a race to figure out who's going to own the channel.
Yeah, and you have no control over that with Eero.
Yeah. I'm just kind of wondering if that, should be a future consideration kind of built in to some of the management of our Wi-Fi devices now, because it's only going to get worse. Like all the networks, all the channels, all those kinds of things. It didn't used to be bad because they were simple. But now we're expanding them. We're creating mesh networks. We're putting them out on the back patio. We're sending them over to the neighbor's garage, right?
Oh, so, even to add to that, like we talked about this on Home Tech once. One utility company was putting in smart meters in people's houses, smart water meters and stuff like that, and people didn't realize that they were broadcasting signals from that smart meter, and those signals were doing things like killing their Zigbee networks or interfering with their Wi-Fi networks, and they had no control over it too. So we need to look at it.
Yeah, well, it's going to be, we're only going to do more.
Yeah,
it's only gonna happen more. Gets me thinking. I wonder if it'd be good for me to know what network. I've got Ring cameras all around. What are they on? I've got a Ring Chime, which acts as a Wi-Fi hub for some of them. One of them, it's just easier to put it on the Wi-Fi network as opposed to using the Chime. I'm going to put a fourth one in the garage here shortly, so that I can look and see if the garage door is shut. That's kind of could just buy a Wi-Fi device for the garage door, but I have 3 cameras and I need a fourth to fill out the block. So don't tell my wife that. Now you got me thinking this weekend I need to do some checking of channels and signals and some of those kinds of things to see what my neighbors are doing, and then just cut the power to their house if it's Oop, I'm sorry that tree fell on your power line. Oh, bummer. Oh, bummer. Any thoughts of, certainly the Eero device that you had was probably a version or 2 back. Any thought of, don't they have any newer equipment or newer version that you could upgrade it to?
Yeah, my Eero devices were mixed, because that's a good thing about Eero is you can mix the generation. So I had everything from Gen 1 up to, I think it was Eero 6 at that time. So like I even just unplugged everything but the latest one. I unplugged all of them, put all the Gen 1s in, was part of troubleshooting. So The new Eero announced this week actually a new version, the 6E. With it comes with the usual, it's faster, better, more range, etc., but it's got some other cool features. It has 2.5 gigahertz, not gigahertz, gigabit inputs. So some of our ISPs up here are now getting faster at 2.5. So now this, yeah, I know, I don't have, I'm still at 1 gigabit.
Stop teasing us.
I know I'm still at 1 gigabit, so I'm not getting the 2 gigabit yet, but this will help with that. But they also built in a Zigbee hub into it, so you can bring all your Zigbee devices into the A-Lady ecosystem through your Eero devices. So that's prepping everybody for Matter and Thread and stuff like that. That's coming down in the fall. It looks good, it looks fast, it supports more devices, and that's something you have to consider going forward. Is as we add more devices, you want to be able to support all these. They're almost like secret devices too, because you don't realize your TV jumps on, or you forget that you put your TV on to stream on it and stuff like that, right? It's amazing how many devices end up on your Wi-Fi.
Yeah, no, right on. You're talking about speed this week. Bob, who's out in chat right now, posted in the Discord group his speeds, and I think he has 2.5 up and down. Yeah. It's ridiculous. I think he was taunting us. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for doing that, Bob, by the way. But I was thinking, geez, I felt good, when I had gigabit, and it was not even 1, it was 0.9. And I was still only getting 35 down or 35 up. So it was like, this is going to work for me. It's weird. I went from 35 up to 75 up, which is kind of nice when I change over to T-Mobile, and it does make a difference, having twice the speed for the uploads, the video files that I do for the podcasts and stuff. It's nice. I'd love it to be symmetrical, just like Bob is seeing there.
I feel the hate.
No, it's okay. He just had to tease us with that picture. If you want to join us in the Discord, if you want to see it, jump in the Discord group, theaverageguy.tv/Discord. Any tips? So as we think about, you did all this, how long? What was the duration, do you think, of from the time you decided you were going to replace this to it being done? And then any tips for us?
Oh, well, from the time I was going to replace everything to it being done, probably about 3 weeks, I would say, because it took me a while to get the parts, right? Like ordering from Unify, sometimes it's hard to get these access points. They're having, especially with the chip shortage, a lot of things are back order. Finding the switch was the hardest part for me. I had to actually source that out of Ottawa. A place in Ottawa had a few of them, and I was able to get them from there. So, plan out your network, make sure you get everything. I went all in on Unify so I can have one ecosystem I have to deal with, because some of these other switches that you don't want to have to understand them as well. It's nice to know just one ecosystem, and then when troubleshooting, it's easier than having, because my Netgear switch was also a smart switch, so it was like I didn't want to have to deal with both of them, right? And offload hardwire as much as you can. Anything that any of the heavy lifters, the TVs, the cameras, if you can run a wire, spend the time, run the wire, and offload it, and your Wi-Fi will like you that much better.
And you had in your notes here, hardwire all the access points as well. Don't use mesh if you don't have to. What mesh is there? Why wouldn't I want to use that?
You can use it, but if you can hardwire your access points, you'll get some better speeds out of it, right? Like your signal will go to access point and go straight to your switch and go straight to whatever, right? Otherwise, if you're using mesh, it goes from the device to the access point to the other access point, down to the the main hub, or it depends on how you'll have it wired, right? But I hardwire all my access points if I can, just to avoid using that mesh, clear up the space, less frequencies being transmitted, and get some better speeds. It's well worth it. And that's another tip I get in the pro space. They're like, you know what, hardwire access points, just don't even bother, and turn off the meshing on them, right? It's just a feature that can cause problems. Just turn it off. We've seen it, and you'll be happier.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's less complex, and the access points have to do less work, which is always good. Yeah, which is always good. So, well, do you feel like you're done at this point from a setup, or is this? Are there still tweaks to do?
No, I'm done. Like this has been running for a few months now, and my printer's still working every day. It's been a habit now where I actually check to see if it's still showing up, and it's working. So you know what? In terms of my network, it's been working great ever since I put the system in. I've had no issues, and like I said, the wife's usually the first one to complain. When things don't work, and I haven't heard from her complaining in a while about that specific thing. So,
I mean, she complains about you all the
yeah,
time.
it's like as long as she's not complaining about the Wi-Fi, I'll take it. So it's been great, but like it wasn't cheap. That's all I have to say. I threw some money to solve the problem and it's solved.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at a lot of these new mesh systems and they're coming out expensive now. Like the new Eero setup, the Pro, the 3-pack is like, I think in the US it was $799 for it. So in Canada we're over $1,000 for Wi-Fi.
It's getting ridiculous. It's really it's the we're back to that really expensive phase again. We've been through this before with tech, right? And it gets really, really expensive, and then hopefully it cycles back down and gets more reasonable again. But it is just it's kind of dumb. It's bringing me down, Gavin. It's bringing me down. Alex says if you have an SDR, which is a software-defined radio dongle, you can pick up radio waves and show all those types of devices, such as smart electric meters, weather stations, etc.
Yeah, I've heard people that did that, and I wanted to look into that and see that actually because I want to see what else, any secret signals in my house, right? Like when doing the Wi-Fi scanning, I didn't realize someone's car was broadcasting a signal, right? And you could tell, like it said, I'm still trying to find the car, right? Because I want to go and tell them, hey, can you change the channel on that somehow to not interfere?
Yeah, Alex, is that a brand you can buy? Is there a brand you buy of this? And what does this thing look like? I'm kind of intrigued. This is like, when you could buy that, I forget what they call it. Wieger had one where you plug it into your car and it tells you all the problems.
The ODB2 reader.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
something
I have
like
one of
that.
those. Yep.
Yeah, do you? He gave me his and I never plugged it in. It was like,
cool little
I
toy.
I don't know. I think I even bought the. You have to buy an app, I think, or something like that to make it work.
The one I got is free, and you know what? It's a peace of mind because when your engine light comes in, you plug it on, it tells you exactly what the cause is. So when you're going to the dealership, you're like, I know it's this that's causing the issue, and it's peace of mind.
Yeah. No, that's good. Well, Alex, that sounds kind of interesting. I'm going to try and get the software running on my Surface over the weekend and see if I can test some radios. I get into this and then I start looking at it and I'm like, man, this stuff is complicated. And then I give up.
I think Wi-Fi is becoming more important now than it ever has been before. Like good working Wi-Fi. We're much more reliant on it now. And with all these IoT devices coming in, they're going to be jumping on the Wi-Fi and, utilizing that. We have to make sure, I hate IoT Wi-Fi devices, right? Like just to be clear, one of the main reasons if I ever change my password, I can't imagine having to go to all of them.
Yeah, it's a weekend.
That's something I can't even imagine changing my password now because of all the things I'd have to go through. Right? Like I wish they would solve that problem, if anything.
Yes. I cringe when I was changing out going from the Cox service to the T-Mobile service. I was afraid I was going to have to reset that. And I was just like, it kind of slowed me down for a minute until I plugged it all in and it just worked. And then I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. I know sometimes even if you have the same SSID and password across devices, sometimes it doesn't recognize it. In your case, it sounds like you put in the same SSID and password and it was fine, right?
Yeah, I have an inventory of all my devices, so I knew when the new one came on, everything showed up. I was like, excellent, And one of the things that's nice with the Unify is you could set up a dedicated 2.4 SSID if you wanted, or like in Eero, you just see one SSID and it handles both of them. Well, some devices don't like that, but in Unify, that's another powerful thing. You can split it up if you need to.
Yeah, and I have that ability too. I just left them together. Here
Yeah.
it didn't matter. I'd split them apart, and then there was another network. Kids would be coming in, Dad, what network do I attach to? Finally, I think I just created one guest network, and it was like, just connect to the guest. You'll be fine. Give them the password, and you'll be fine. Anything else, Gavin, from a anything I didn't ask or didn't cover, or thoughts as far as lessons learned around that? Would you do it exactly the same way again if you had to do it today?
If I had to do it today, I'd probably do it the same way, and the reason why is because I'm having no issues with it right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it works, and I got everything I want out of it. My advice also to people is like understand what's on your network, like know everything and how it interacts, because you'd be surprised at something like even Sonos, right? If you're a bit in the Sonos ecosystem, Sonos has a Sonos Net, right? Where it connects like its own Wi-Fi network in a way. They connect to each other. You hardwire just one of them, and it goes from there. Well, you got to understand what channel that's running on, because I actually had to change my Sonos Net, and then my Sonos started working properly, right? So understand all the devices that you. It's a lot of work, I know, but this is the time we're in when we start playing with these more advanced tools. It's when things start breaking, you need to know why.
Yeah. No, right on. You got me thinking now, like, because I had one time, I had also mapped all the devices in the house by IP. I even captured their MAC address, put what they were, where they were located, at this really nice spreadsheet. And then I think I had to change devices, and that all got reassigned. And the thought of going back into my router and manually assigning all those again, I was like, I'm not going to do it. So I don't actually know now. The Bitdefender gives me gives me a really, really good readout of all the devices that are attached, and are they secure, and do they have any vulnerabilities? It scans them for vulnerabilities, which is kind of cool. But yeah, that's like, to your point, if I had to change them all again, there's some things that you're like, well, I'll just wait for it not to work, and then I'll find it, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
well, and it's one of those kinds of things, like the meter, right? The meat thermometer that I have. Like, you set that up once and you kind of forget about it. You change your SSID or whatever. It's Thanksgiving, you go to grab that thing and you forget that 6 months ago, because you haven't
Yep.
used it in 6 months, right? And it's always a frustrating. You're like, oh, okay, where's the app?
Yeah.
How do I find? I've got to I got to redo it, and you're like, your wife is looking at you like, you moron, just put the turkey on the grill.
It's true.
Jeez.
Yeah,
Right.
it's true. We
Yeah.
overcomplicate sometimes.
No, totally do.
But we love it. We do, and
Totally.
we do it again. We do it again.
Yeah. Well, we do it again. we keep doing it. Do you have any you got any big projects ahead that you're looking forward to, maybe this spring or summer, that you're kind of thinking you're going to redo, or any projects like that?
Redoing, no, this was probably the last major one. Like, I redid my whole cameras. We talked about that in the
Yep.
Iris episode,
Yeah.
and I did my Wi-Fi, and that was the major things. Now I'm kind of been in the phase of adding features and improving certain experiences, and like one of the things I did this week is I created a tiler for my TV watching. So in the pro space, they were talking about these things called video tilers, and it takes multiple inputs and then gives you like a tiled, you can watch like 4 channels at once, for example, right? And they were talking about it in the boxes, the equipment's $10,000, $15,000. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let me see if I could do this with my setup. So I actually created something this week. We talked about it on the show, where it tiles multiple channels. I can watch multiple things at once through my interface, all controlled from the remote control and the guide and everything like that. It's a really cool project I put together. And it was just in time for March Madness. So I was watching multiple games at once,
Oh
flipping
yeah,
the audio between.
nice.
Oh, it was awesome on the big
Nice.
TV. So those kind of projects like that made TV viewing better. And I've been working on increasing things like that, making experiences better, and just adding features with a lot of the stuff I've implemented.
That's cool. Now, wait, you said March Madness. What, do you guys have a March Madness where it's hockey and not
basketball?
You're not watching American basketball. That's not violent enough.
Oh no! What do you mean? No, we watch it. We used to have a pool in the office for it every year and stuff like that.
They don't let them fight.
I know.
There's no body checking. I mean,
one of the coaches, he threw a punch the other day that was exciting. One of the was it Michigan's coach?
You get thrown out for those kinds of things.
Yeah, but I like the college March Madness because those kids play their heart out, and it's more exciting than the NBA because the NBA guys are like, I'm already making $40 million. It's nice to have a title, but those kids are playing for like their future.
Yeah.
Go Gonzaga. I'm rooting for them.
Yeah. Listen, if in the United States, if the college football, whatever they are, could get their act together and do a playoff system, because I get with college football, I get after Thanksgiving, I don't really care after the championship weekend, and then they do this weird bowl thing, and I don't watch any of them. But man, I tell you what, last weekend, St. Patrick's Day, and I mean, we were watching one of them, not watching it, Wieger was, but we were following the Creighton game during the show, like
last week.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just a cool thing. So I wish we would get our college football on that system as opposed to. I mean, it works for the NFL. Why can't they do it for college football? Is there a big hockey? Is there a college hockey? How's that work in Canada? I mean, I know you guys are nuts about hockey. Besides the pro stuff, what's the next level down?
Is it OHL or I'm not sure the rankings of hockey in Canada.
You're not really a Canadian. I
drink Tim Hortons. I drink Tim Hortons every day, but I mean, I don't really
stripping you of your Canadianness.
I'm more of a basketball fan, and the Raptors are Canada's team, right? Toronto Raptors.
Whatever. It's almost like an enclave of the United States goes in and comes around for that. It's you're not Canadian. You're just an American that lives in Canada. I'm disappointed with you, Gavin.
I hear it from my neighbors too, and they start talking hockey, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't see the game.
I have, for whatever reason, I've gotten reintroduced to Letterkenny over the last couple weeks, right? And I've just been watching all the shorts on YouTube. Not the whole episodes, but just the shorts, and it's just hilarious. And so it's a great reminder, and I know it's exaggerated, but it's just a great reminder of how great Canada is. And so thanks for representing the United States strongly, though, with basketball, Gavin.
Hey, basketball was invented in Canada, so
that's true. Well, was it?
Yeah,
I thought it was Kansas.
No, it was Was it Naismith? No,
was he?
It's a Canadian inventor. Yeah, it was invented.
Okay. All right. Well, we have to fight on that one, but it's okay. I'll pull your shirt up and then just kind of beat on you.
You're not allowed to fight. I only learned this other day, but it's like an unwritten rule in hockey that if the guy doesn't drop his gloves, he can't punch him. Like that's the kind of like, let's go, drop the gloves. All right. And I was like, I didn't even know. In that moment in time, I'm not thinking about his gloves. I was just gonna hit him, right? Like, you guys actually have rules to war.
There's a whole etiquette. There's a whole etiquette around hockey fighting, and what you got to do, and every team's got that bruiser who's that this can't play hockey, but man, he's big and strong. He can knock people down. It's a lot. It's its own great culture. One of the I love Olympic hockey because it's not as violent. The NHL is just, it's a little over the top at times. And I know, I'm sure in the Canadian leagues it gets pretty rough, right? And they don't allow any of that in the Olympics, and it just makes for, even though I joke about it, it just makes for a little bit better sport, not having people fighting, out there. But people love it. It's they go to a hockey game and a fight breaks out, right? So
it's part of the sport.
Yeah, it's totally part of it. Everybody loves to see that. So Gavin, if folks wanted to contact you, what's the best way to do that?
On Twitter, I'm GVN Campbell. Just think Gavin Campbell, but I took out the A and the I. Or Gavin at hometech.fm is an email you can reach me at. I'm also in the Discord chat. I'm watching there if you mentioned me. So you can get a hold of me there.
Can do that as well. And then make sure you subscribe to HomeTech .fm and listen to these guys. It's some really good stuff. We're just goofing around here. They're actually serious over there.
We goof around over there too. Don't worry.
You goof around a little bit. You goof around. You're a little more serious than us over here, though. We're just blah blah blah. Well, Gavin, thanks for coming on. Before we wrap it, I'm going to try a new format at the end of April. April 28th is a Thursday night. I want to do a tech news roundtable. And if what I kind of want to do is have listeners submit tech stories and be willing to come talk about them. And we'll just do kind of a news segment. I just want to try it once, see if it works. And so if you're listening to this, whether you're listening live or you're listening on the podcast, and hopefully it's before the 28th of April, 2022, and you want to be on Home Gadget Geeks like Gavin has been on here tonight, and you want to talk about some tech news stories, I won't be able to take everybody. I may not even get an email from anyone, but I'd love you guys, if you have a tech story you want to talk about, you can submit those as we get a little bit closer to it. Although by the time this comes out and some things goes on, you might want to submit them. But I'd love to get together and talk about just tech news in a roundtable format for an hour and a half or so. Send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. If you're interested in trying that, you got to have a story. I'll pick a few of those and have a few on. We'll give it a try. If it works, we'll do it again, but I'm just going to try it once. Again, that's April 28th, 2022, kind of a tech news roundtable. I want to give that format a try here, just kind of trying to, Gavin, I'm experimenting with some new things. It's
nothing wrong with that.
I feel like it's time to try a few things different. jim@theaverageguy.tv. Don't forget, we are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central. And before I go into this, Gavin, again, thank you for coming out. I appreciate you spending time with me tonight and going through this. I appreciate it.
Oh no, I really appreciate you having me on. And don't tell Mike, but I missed him, tonight.
I know.
Don't let him know.
I know.
Don't let him know.
No, we definitely don't want to let him know. So,
exactly. But I'll never hear the end of it.
We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. Don't forget, theaverageguy.tv is powered by Maple Grove Partners. We had Christian on before, and actually I have a Cyber Frontiers sitting in the queue that I was supposed to edit this week that I just never got to. We'll get that out here eventually. But get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting, and it's fast from people that you know and you trust. And, of course, that's Christian. And so plans start as little as $10 a month. He's going to be an inflation fighter and not raise his prices. So $10 a month gets you kind of some pretty great hosting. Check them out, maplegrovepartners.com. Send me an email for the Tech News Roundtable. And we are back next week. Again, Cody, I got to learn his name before we do this. Sodine is joining us next week. Kind of a different show where we're talking about a Kickstarter project that takes water out of the atmosphere and makes it drinkable in up to 10 liters like that a day. Sounds kind of interesting. We're going to check it out next week. Join us live. Love to have a big crowd if you guys want to come out and join us live. Don't forget, theaverageguy.tv/YouTube, Saturday, noon Central. I want to thank you for joining us. We'll do a little bit of a post show for those that are staying around live. With that, we'll say goodbye.